Welcome to another fun and informative video, and today we're working on the Lexus again. So there's a problem that's really been annoying me, and it's to do with the radio. So let me get inside the car and I'll explain what exactly is wrong. Alright, so this is the current radio that's in the car. This is the 12.2 inch Tesla style radio. It's quite a nice unit, and I've actually had quite a good experience overall with it, but there's one issue that's been really annoying me. So when I get in the car, I like to put down my phone somewhere in the center console, but there's not actually a place for that. It's just cup holders and a little storage unit, which is basically useless, the ashtray and the cigarette lighter hole. So there's nowhere to put your phone, and I've always wanted a little storage cubby like most cars have, and this is missing that. So what I went ahead and did is order the new radio, which is only a 9 inch. So it sits up here, and underneath there's a gap where the cassette player used to sit. And in there I'm going to have a little box, and on the bottom of that box is going to be a wireless charger, so you can stick your phone in there and get it to charge. The other issue that's been really pissing me off is the off button for the AC, which is non-existent on this radio. And the new radio has that, so it's a great feature. With this one you have to use the touch screen to turn off the AC. It's not that big a deal, but I prefer physical buttons. One thing I really like about this radio is the quality of these buttons. They're a lot nicer than the new one I have, and I'll show you that in just a second. But these feel really nice to click. They're like pretty solid and good quality, whereas the new one is just flimsy. It feels really cheap, but it doesn't really matter. It's not that big a deal as long as it's got the off button. So let's just turn it on for a second. Let me show you what it's like. This is the interface. We've got all the apps here. You can install all sorts of apps. And one mistake I made when buying this one is I ordered the 2GB version, and I'll have to install extra apps, and 2GB of RAM is just not enough to run extra stuff. Plus it doesn't have much storage either. So with the new one I ordered the biggest size I could find. So let's just shut the door so it stops beeping. The sound quality on this unit is actually very good, and the Bluetooth connectivity is just as good. Connects flawlessly to the phone, no problems. AC works, everything works as it should. And this here is the new unit and all its accessories. What I like about this is it comes with dash cam. Obviously for extra you have to pay for all these bits and pieces, but I thought I'd order the whole lot at once and have all the features I could have, because why not? This is little mounting grommets for these cameras. These are 360, like the bird's eye view type cameras. They go in the mirrors in the front and the back, and then the radio basically merges the 4 images into one image as if you're looking from on top of the car. And these are all the extension cables for that. And these are the front and back cameras. So that's that, and this is the radio itself over here. Got all the wiring and the CAN adapter to talk to the car, and all the adapter wires, so it should be plug and play. Hopefully it all works. Here we've got the wireless charger I'm planning on using in the storage area, and this is the radio itself. So just before we get into the radio, these are the antennas and the AV input/output cables. This is a 4G antenna, and this basically works if you're using a SIM card, and it also comes with a little SIM card holder somewhere in there, which is this guy right here, and the GPS antenna, and what else? Yeah, I think that's about it. This is what the new radio looks like. These are the buttons. They're not too bad, but if you listen closely, I'll just bring this closer and listen to the click of it. It's just not as satisfying. It's got a bit of play, and compared to something like this, and you can hear the difference. And another reason why I prefer this style of radio over this one is the horizontal layout. I just like that a lot more than the vertical. This just doesn't feel right. It's just pointless having it tall. And you can run split screen on that, basically running two applications side by side, whereas here it'd be difficult. So now I think it's time to get my toolbox and take apart the center console and get this new radio in place. Now, before I put in the new radio into the dashboard, I'm going to have to install the cameras on the mirrors and the front and back, plus all the antennas, so I can have the wiring ready to plug in once I'm ready to put the new head unit in place. So that's going to require us to take off the door trims to get to the mirrors, and then take apart the mirror, drill a hole in the bottom of it, put the camera in, and run the wire through the door trim, through the grommet, through the dashboard, and into the back of the radio. So now I'm just pulling off the battery lead, and we're going to get stuck into it. So we're starting with the driver's side door. I'm going to be pulling off the door trim and getting the mirror out, and show you later on. I should have actually tilted the mirror up before disconnecting the battery, but that's fine. So what's going to be done is we're going to tilt the mirror right up, and underneath there's a clip to get the glass out. Once that's out, we have access to the inside of it. That way we can drill the hole and run the wiring through. Hopefully there's going to be enough space in here to run the wiring, because there's already wires running in. So hopefully we can just use the same grommet that goes through there. Now let's just pull off the door trim and see what it's like. So to get the trim off, you have to take off this little cover, and underneath there's a screw that holds the door handle in place, and down here there's another one, and I believe that's all there is, and then the rest are just clips, and the whole thing just pops out and lifts out. And here's the little cover off, and that's the screw in there. Down here we've got this little LED ambient light, and to pull it out there's a screw in there which holds the panel in place. So I just got rid of the two screws and took off the panel, and also pulled down the windows and tilted up the mirrors. And just after I took off the panel, this little surprise here. So one of the speakers sounds terrible, and there's been a really bad rattling sound at certain frequencies which has been driving me nuts. And I always thought it's speaker up there in the dashboard, but it turns out it's this one right here. So that's going to get replaced as well while we're here. And I'm actually quite happy that I found the cause of it. That way it saves me having to pull the dash apart to get to the one up there. To get to the mirror, we're going to have to pull off this bit of trim, and there's a screw in there that's going to come out, and once this is out we'll be able to take the mirror off and work on getting the camera installed at the bottom. These three 10mm bolts hold the mirror in place. I'm going to take them off, and we'll get the glass off the mirror, and then we'll figure out how we can install the little camera. And here's the mirror off the car, and underneath here there's a clip. I don't think you can see through the camera, but so basically how it works is you stick in a flathead screwdriver in the gap, get the camera to focus, and gap I believe, and then you push the clip, and that basically pops the glass out. Once the glass is out, there's a few Phillips head screws to get the back cover off. Once that's off, we can pull off this little lens, and the camera will either sit here or on the lens if there's not enough space. I mean, it looks like there's not going to be enough. And I finally managed to get the glass off. Get in here. You see, this is what holds it in place. So basically, got these two tabs that sit here and push up, and these two put into these two holes. So all you have to do is stick your flathead screwdriver in there and pry this white plastic part away from the back of the glass. So once this pops out, just pull it that way and the whole thing comes out. So now I've got these Phillips head screws in there. They're going to come out and the back cover is going to come off. Once that's off, we can see the little light assembly down there and figure out how we're going to set up the camera. And so I was actually wrong about the cover. It's actually the front cover that comes off once you unscrew the 4 Phillips head screws. And the back cover is just clipped in place with these two clips. And we have a friendly little spider in there. It's actually not very little, huge black spider. But anyways, there he is. Down there. So let's get him out first and then worry about getting off the cover. And with the back cover off, here's the spider. So we're going to safely transport him and let him loose into the yard and get back to work. Alright. Just doesn't crawl up onto my arm. But doesn't want to leave. If you know anything about Australia, know that they've got nasty spiders, so I'm trying not to mess with them too much, just in case. There we go. Just let it go right there. And now with the spider out of our way, we can put the camera in place. So this is the little housing for the LED light that illuminates the doors, and it looks like it's a bit too small to house the camera, but we're going to give it a try anyway. And this is the back cover of the mirror, so if it doesn't fit within the shell of the light, we'll have to put it on the end of the mirror right there. It's going to be probably a little bit tilted up, but I don't think that'll affect the beauty of the camera. Here I've got the cameras I'm going to be putting in, and I've just had a look at this area here, and I don't think it's actually going to work because the housing of the camera, so this part, sorry, the housing of the mirror actually sits deep inside the back shell, so can't actually have the camera here, otherwise it will interfere with that piece and with the glass. So our best bet is to have it inside this shell. It's probably going to cast a shadow, kind of ruin the lighting, but then at least the camera's mounted. And I'll probably have it on the inside half, that way the lighting that's away from the door illuminates rather than the part that's facing the door, which is pointless anyways. So it shouldn't be that big an issue. So I'll drill out this lens and drill out the housing at the back for the wire to come out, and then mount it within the lens. This little hole saw came with the kit and it's the perfect size for the cameras. So that's what I'm going to use to drill out the lens. But while I wait for my drill to recharge, I'll go into the passenger side door and get started on that. Now the mirror is off as well on the passenger side, and this speaker is cooked as well, so we're going to replace this side too. And it makes sense because you can't really replace just one, it won't sound the same, so we'll have an annoying imbalance in sound, so we're going to be replacing both sides. And this is the mirror on the passenger side, similar story. And the bonus is I'm going to be able to repair the light because that doesn't work either. So now the annoying part of getting the glass off. And now it's time to install the DVR and the 4G antenna. So my drill's still not fully charged. We're going to wait for that, and while we wait, we're going to install this guy right here. So this is going behind the rear view mirror up here where it's not disturbing the view, and 4G antenna is going to go right up here. There's already a wiper sensor on that side, so it just makes sense to put the 4G antenna up here. It's not that I'm probably ever going to use it, but better have it there than lose it. Now it's in place, this is what it looks like. So this is what the mirror looks like. It doesn't really interfere with anything, and it's out of sight, so it's perfectly situated up here. I left a bit of a gap on this side because I need to get access to the SD card port, which is right here. So we don't want it too close to the middle where it's going to be a pain to reach the SD card. This right here is the 4G antenna, and I'm just going to place that right up here so it doesn't interfere with anything either. And now that both these guys are in place, we're just going to tuck in the wiring under the headliner and bring it right around down the A-pillar and into the dashboard, and then across underneath the dash and out where the radio is. And finally it's time to take out the old radio, and we're going to use this USB cable that came with the DVR to connect between the camera and the radio. So what we're going to be doing is running the wire from the radio up rather than the other way around, because this USB head is going to be a pain to get through tight spaces, whereas the other end of it is quite slim. So we're going to run this end through the dashboard and up. Now to remove the head unit, you have to take off the center console. To do that, you first start off by getting rid of the shift knob, and then once that's out, you have to take off the wood grain trim, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. So that's the shift knob out the way. So with this guy, you just have to lift it up, and it's just clipped in all around. You can use this tool right here, which also came with the new radio. It's quite handy, and stick it under there and pry up, and then once that's out, just pull it all around and it'll come out. And then to get the shift stick out, we have to hit the shift lock and shift down to D or N, and then it just lifts out and pulls out that way. Now once that's out the way, we've got these Phillips head screws to take out. So these are basically holding in the side trim. Once these are out, it's also just clipped in. So you can see, if I can find the clip, it's back here. So it just pulls out just like that. And the front is also clipped in, but then you have to get rid of this screw first. Then you just give it a good pull and pull it forward, and it pops up. Same story with this side. Pop this clip, pull it forward, and it just pops out. So to get the radio off, there's this little hole here, if you can see it, and inside there's a 10mm bolt that holds the radio in place. So you'll need a socket, probably with an extension, and you reach in there, take that out, and there's the same thing on the other side, and then this basically just pulls out and the whole thing comes out. Turns out I forgot about these guys here, which are just below the one I mentioned earlier. I just pulled out the radio and unplugged all the wiring. I had to give it a bit of a push to get these clips out, so just reach in behind and push them out, because the large screen's a bit flimsy. You don't want to break the screen if you pull it too hard. So now we've got all these old wires. The GPS antenna is already in place and stuff like that, so we're not going to remove those. We'll just use the old one that's already there. And now it's time to run the wiring into the doors for the cameras, and then run a wire to the front. And then with the back one, I'm not sure exactly yet how I'm going to do it, because the boot lid has a ribbon cable, and that's a pain to run wiring through. This is what I have now, and I found an extra wire in the ribbon cable which I used, but I don't think it'll work with this setup, since this is what the plugs look like. They're different and they're shielded wires. I don't want to mess with them just in case I can't get the shield right, so I'll try my best to run the actual wire through the tailgate. With the wire that comes out to the front, I've just removed the trim around the engine and going to find a grommet that goes in behind the dash, put a small hole in it and pass the cable through that, and then the camera is going to sit on the front grille or on the one below it, and we're going to try not to keep it close to the radar cruise, otherwise it'll interfere with that. And yeah, we'll figure that out once we get to it, but for now we're just going to run the wiring through here and into the grommet, into the dashboard and up to the radio. The grommet's actually quite a pain to reach. It's underneath the ABS pump, which I can't be bothered taking out just to reach the grommet. So what we're going to do is get some thick wire and push it through the grommet, get it out of this gap, wrap it around the wire that's going in and just pull it through the grommet and out underneath the dash. The grommet underneath the dash is right there, so we'll push the wire out of here, and the one going into the right side door is actually going to be coming out of another grommet that's behind the carpet. So basically go through there and into the dash. I've got this old coat hanger I'm going to take apart, and we're going to use that to feed the wire through the grommet. So I've just got the zip tie off. Now we can pull the inner half of the grommet out of the way, and then we'll just poke through the outer half of the coat hanger and then feed in the wire from the inside out, since the end that goes out of the car is actually a lot slimmer and a lot easier to pass through the hole. The wire is now fed through the grommet, and this is how we did it. This is the coat hanger, and I just taped the wire to the end of it and pulled it straight through. Now I'm going to get rid of the tape and plug it into the camera, and the camera is going to be mounted right up here just on top of the badge, and it should be high enough to not interfere with the radar unit and still get a good view. Back in the car we have the rest of the wire. So this end of the wire is going to get fed underneath the dash and out where the radio sits. The wiring for the front camera is pretty much sorted, and here is the end that plugs into the radio. And then now it's time to drill these guys out and mount the side view cameras. This is the hole for the wire to come out of, and this is the grommet in place in the light housing. Now we're going to just push the camera through and install it in place. Now we have both cameras installed in the light housings, and now it's time to put back together both the mirrors and put the cameras in place, and then we'll just feed the wiring through the grommets and get it to find its way through the dashboard and then to the radio. I came to put it back together and I realized that this electric mirror doesn't actually have wires going through it. It's got like a similar to a clock spring, and there's actually wires going into the motor and then out this side, so it's pretty much almost impossible to run wires through it. So the plan is to drill a small hole in the bottom of the mirror and run the wire out externally underneath the mirror and then into the door trim. We'll just have to figure out a way of getting it into here, because this piece is actually metal, I'm pretty sure. It's not plastic, but this panel down here looks like it's plastic, so we're going to try drilling through this and getting the wire through here. So this is what I ended up doing. I cut a small notch just there and passed the wire through it and through this hole into there and out of the grommet. And now that's going to be easy to fish through the door trim and into the dash. Now it's just time to put back together the glass of the mirror and put the mirror back in place. I just made a really stupid mistake. This is the wire that comes from the front, and ran it through, finished doing all that, and I realised I've got the wrong end. This end actually has to be at the camera at the front, and then the end that's at the camera is what plugs into the back of the radio into this adapter. So time to take it all back out and do it again. So how we're going to fix that stupid mistake is I'm going to get the end of this and tape it to itself as far back as I can get it. Might pull a bit of extra from the inside, and then once it's taped all around, pull it back through the grommet, cut off the tape, and then pull the correct end back out, and that should flip it around. And finally we have the correct end through. So the radio end of the wire actually doesn't have a label, so I've got my label printer here. I'm going to label each one because it's going to be a pain to figure out which one's which once they're out of the dashboard and into the radio. So I might as well just label them now and save myself the headache later. And after labeling the right hand side, I actually realised they're colour coded. Completely forgot about that, so there's actually no point labeling them, but still label this one anyways. So the right side is done, and now we're going to do the left side mirror as well and run all the wiring from the left side just like we did on this side. So what we did is we ran it through with the rest of the wires through the grommet and into the cabin and under the dash. The left side is now also done. The wires through and into the car. Now we move on to the back. So I've already started with the wiring at the back. So what I've decided to do is use the existing reversing camera wires, and cut this guy here, and I'm going to wire them into these guys here. So the plan is we've got a positive feed wire, which is basically a constant positive, not just with the reverse lamps like a usual camera, because you can use the 360 camera even while you're not in reverse. So what I'm going to do is hook it up to the reverse wire and hook up the shield to the shield wire, the signal wire to the signal, and the ground to the ground. And then what I'll be doing is at the end of the ribbon cable, which is on this side here, I'll be snipping the reverse signal wire and hooking it up to a constant positive, and then once I'm done with that, I'll run the main wire, which I have here, up to the radio. So this should have a constant positive within it that comes from the radio and feeds the camera. So we'll be just using that and hooking it up to the reverse signal wire on the ribbon cable side. And then once that's done, it'll run just as usual as if we've actually run the wire physically through the ribbon cable. To replace the old wire, what I've done is I've taped the new wire to the old one, and I'm just going to pull through the old wire straight out the back, and that should pull in the new wire and replace the old one. So I'm just going to start off under the glove box and pull it through, and then pull it through here, and then I think once it's past this point I should be able to pull it the rest of the way out, but we'll see how we go. New camera's in, ready to go. This is what it looks like on the outside. And just plug it in. All this is wired up, and so is the ribbon cable. So pretty much done with the rear camera and left to right. Now it's just time to mount the front one, and that's all 4 cameras done. Continuing on from where we left yesterday, it's time to remove the A-pillar cover and run the DVR cable. So I tried running it through here, but then it's probably not a good idea since this is an airbag, and there's actually a spot inside here special for wires, so we're going to be using that instead. And to remove this cover, there's a clip underneath here that needs to be twisted. So the way it's done is just by pulling it a little bit, just to have enough room to get a pair of pliers in there, twist it up, and then this pulls out. Once the top is out, the bottom has a clip that just pulls out normally, and then the whole cover is off, and we can fish the cable through there and up underneath the headliner and into the DVR cable. So what I'm going to do is remove the rubber door seal first. I think it just pulls out just like this, and then once that's out the way, it'll give us a bit more room, and then I'll just use my trim removal tool to pry open the edge of the airbag cover. So this is what it looks like with the rubber off, and all I did is basically just push it that way with a bit of a twist, and then it pops off just like this, and you have a large enough gap to get into the clip there, which is this guy right here. So that has to basically be twisted this way so it can pull out of the slot, so it's got a bit more play room in it now, but you can see it locks till there. So now we'll just get in there with a pair of pliers, twist it and pull it off. This is what it looks like with the cover off, and here's the clip I mentioned earlier that basically just twists like this and pops out. This is the curtain airbag right here, and here is the tube. I believe this is for the drain, the sunroof drain. So our cables are going to run up besides this tube and around into the headliner. And this is what it looks like all done. The cables are all hidden and underneath here. And now we pretty much have everything here. I've just got one more cable to run. It's kind of an experiment, so I'm going to be using an AV cable going from the radio up to the dash, and I'm going to attempt to set up a heads-up display that runs with the radio. This is the little 4-inch display that I'm planning on using, and I've just ran the wire into the side of the dash, and the plugs are underneath, so it just looks a bit neater. I didn't want plugs just floating around on the dash. And this is the other end of the AV cable. So it's got ground from the chassis down near the door sill, and then this is the positive feed wire, and I'm planning on hooking this up to the amplifier wire on the radio, which I'm not using. That way I can turn it on and off through the amplifier switch on the radio. So we pretty much have everything in place, all the wiring's here, so it's just basically plugging in everything from now. But before I finish that, I want to sort out both speakers, put in the new ones and put back on the door trim, and then plug in the radio, hook up the battery and do a bit of testing, see if everything works, and then just mount it in place and put back the trim. And for the new speakers, I've got a pair of Kenwoods. They are 4 ohms, which match the original ones. Probably not going to be as good quality as the original, but they'll still do the trick. At least they won't rattle anymore. And yeah, that's about it for the speakers. Basically going to gut the old speaker adapter and snap all the bridges holding in the old speaker, so it's just an empty hole, and mount these straight into it, and then solder the wires off the back of this into the original plug, so it's just going to be a plug and play fit into there. And we're back at it, and here's the speaker I prepared yesterday. It's just going to go into the door trim, and do the same for the other side. So now all that's left to do is put in the speakers, put it back in the door trims, and get stuck into installing the radio. All the cables are already there, so there's nothing else left to do on that side. The radio mounts are now in place, and I had to use these small screws with a washer behind them since they go straight through the hole, and I couldn't find a screw with a big enough head and small enough back part, because the holes they have there are quite tiny and they're not threaded either, there's just plastic, and to be honest it's quite flimsy, it's not really like solid. And all of that's holding the radio is just these two tabs here. So there's 4 of these, 2 on this side and 2 on that side, and that's basically all of what's holding the radio in place. As you can see, it's not that sturdy. So this is what the wiring looks like. This is the CAN adapter, and this is the 360 camera wires, and all these extra wires which we're not going to use. Probably only the video output we're going to be using. And yeah, that's everything. So I'm just going to go ahead and start plugging in each and every plug into the car, and then once that's done I'll mount the radio. Nice thing about it is it does have clips at the top which do clip into here, whereas the larger screen one didn't have proper clips and it was a bit flimsy at the top. So overall I think this will sit nicer than the 12-inch one. So let's go ahead and finish it up and see what it looks like. I've just finished plugging each plug, and we're left with these extra plugs. These go to the cassette player, so I'm just going to leave them out since I don't have mine, and I'm going to be using that area for storage. So that's pretty much all the wiring, and now I think it's time to give it a test. And one thing I did notice is the harness they do give you with it doesn't actually have a video output, and they give you this second one that has a video output, so I don't know what the point of having this is, because it's just the same as this without all the extra stuff. So what I'm going to be doing is, after I turn it on, I'm going to see what the settings do, because the cooling fan here is hooked up to the amplifier wire, so I'm guessing when I turn off the amplifier option on the radio, the fan's going to turn off. So I'm just going to try and find out how that works, and then we'll go from there. Hopefully I'll be able to just switch over the video output from here to this other harness and use that. I just put the battery back in, and now I'm ready to give it a try. Let's see how we go. It should be turning on now, but it's not. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Just have to actually switch on the key. Alright, so far it looks good. This is the AC controls. They look a lot better than the old radio. Music seems to work. And the new speakers definitely sound a lot better. Alright. So this is the amplifier setting, which I'm pretty sure is hooked up to the fan, so I'm about to find that out. And find out if I can get a video output from this. I just finished messing around with all the different features, and man is this thing good. The Android Auto is amazing. It blinks perfectly fine with the phone and it works flawlessly. And one thing I really love about it is the voice command, the Google voice command, and it seems to work perfectly as well. and that's without the external microphones, just using this mic up here. So with the external mic, if I can mount it anywhere closer, like possibly behind the steering wheel or on the dash, it'll work even better because it's going to record a lot more clearly. And the sound quality is amazing, like compared to the older radio, because this has DSP as well, digital sound processing. And one thing I noticed is songs that didn't have bass before now have bass where it's meant to be, because they're tuned for headphones, but the DSP fixes that and runs the subwoofer perfectly. So I'm really happy with that. And unfortunately it's a bit hard to show it on video, like the sound quality, for two reasons. One being the copyright issues. I can't really play any song that's not free license, and most of the ones with good bass aren't. So I might leave a link in the description to a test video, possibly on another platform. And the second reason is, well, the recording of the video is probably not going to be enough to do it justice. Like, it won't show the true sound quality just through the phone. Now back to the issue of the missing video output cable. What I'm going to be doing is got this second harness that came with it, which I've plugged in, and this is the amplifier trigger wire. So I'm going to be testing this to see if it actually still works with the settings on the touch screen, because if it does, that means the amplifier trigger is only useful for turning on the fan, and that's a bit annoying since I was going to use this to trigger the heads-up display, but we'll work our way around that. And the second thing is going to be testing out the video output to see if it actually works in this configuration, because if it does, I'll just be able to move this cable to the other harness and use that. And exactly like I thought, it does have power with the touchscreen button, so this basically is going to be used to turn on and off the fan, and I won't be able to use it with the heads-up display, so I'll try to figure out another way of using the fan while still being able to use this. If the fan's not noisy, I'll have it running all the time possibly, or hook it up to some form of temperature sensor or something and hook it up to constant power so it's just automatically turned on. And yeah, now it's time to test out the video output. And so here we are, I've just wrapped up the installation and time to do a bit of a review. So the sound quality actually turned out to be absolutely rubbish with this CAN decoder. Usually this has nothing to do with the sound quality, but I tried to get the aircon working because that doesn't work either. And so I got this box from my old radio in an attempt to get the aircon working, but instead I got the sound quality back to being good and the aircon still doesn't work. So it turned out that this particular brand, the Raise one, doesn't actually work with this car, and I had to actually go and order a new one, which is kind of annoying since it's the seller's fault, but they did give me a discount on the new one, so at least there's that. And that one should fix the aircon problem, and I'm pretty sure it's called BSJ, the brand, and it's a white one. It's basically just like this, but the color of it's white. So that one should fix the aircon, and hopefully that also has good sound quality. Usually this has nothing to do with the sound quality, but hopefully it doesn't ruin it like this one did. So overall the radio's alright. It did glitch a few times, but after running it and using it a few times, it's actually smoothing out now and it seems to be all good. So this is what the operating system looks like. It first comes up with the 360 camera, which didn't used to work because I stuffed up the connections on the rear camera. So I'll be fixing the wiring as it should be because I hooked up an extra ground which is not meant to be there. I didn't know how these things worked, but now that I found out, I'll fix that. This is what the operating system looks like. It's not terrible, but I'm looking to change it to a different style one. I'm not a huge fan of this kind of shape. Just after like maybe just two boxes with something, and then maybe one with the maps and the camera or something like that. So I'll try get that changed, and I'll try calibrating the camera next. but now at least everything's working as it should. The Android Auto, which is this app here, actually works quite well, and voice command is perfect, so I'm happy with that. And overall it's a pretty good unit. Just a few little things here and there that need to be done to get it working properly, but apart from that everything seems to work well. Once the aircon's done, I believe that'll be pretty much it with all the features running, including the cameras. And the overall fitment is much better than the Tesla style one. That one used to actually pop out here. This is not actually sitting in place just yet. It sits perfectly flush, but I haven't actually clipped it in or even put any of the bolts in because I'm constantly taking it out and putting it back in to sort out the aircon stuff. So just going to leave it in there like this for now, and I might go back to the old radio just to use the aircon in the meantime, and then once I get the box I'll update you on how it goes, and hopefully everything gets working. So thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all my other videos. There's plenty of interesting stuff I did to this car and a few other videos about this car, and there's definitely a lot more to come. And be sure to check out my other projects as well and adventures. So yeah, stay tuned and thanks for watching.